The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Head to cut.com, that's KUTC.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Nordic Fantasy. Play their fantasy pick'em for a chance to win 100 times your money in NBA, NHL, college basketball, and more. Sign up today using promo code SGPN to get a 100% deposit match. We're also brought to you by the SGPN subscriber-only March Madness Bankroll Challenge. Free to enter and up to $2,000 in prizes. Enter today at sportsgamepodcast.com/madness. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports fan research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the app or visit HOPENY.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently early Wednesday morning, roughly 2 a.m. Eastern Time on March 20th. And I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again, going solo for this pod. I said in the last episode, we did end up returning to schedule as we were going to talk about the recap, I'd say, portion of the Indian Wells, as we ended up missing the entire event because of illness. So because of that, decided to recap that event. But I did mention that we were going to return to the normal schedule, which means we are going to preview Miami for this event. Now, in addition to previewing, since it is a Masters 1000 event, we are going to do an episode per round. So we are going to go back to the usual schedule moving forward. Either way, though, point is we're going to be reviewing, not really reviewing, mostly just previewing the Miami tournament while reviewing what happened last year and in the last couple of years in terms of the winners and runner-ups. Either way, though, a reminder before we actually get started, a reminder to hit the like button, subscribe on YouTube. Also, a reminder to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple if you are still consuming your podcast in audio format only. Plus, a reminder on the merch store, we have a bunch of tennis gambling podcast merch. We have shirts, we have mugs, etc., all in the SGPN merch store. So if you want to support the show, you know where to go in order to buy some merch. Either way, though, nothing really to recap in terms of lock and dog picks because we did that in the last episode. As for some news that happened over the course of the last 24 hours, you ended up seeing an update on Sabalenka. I did mention in the end of last episode about her unfortunate situation with her boyfriend who ended up dying. It was confirmed that he ended up basically committing suicide, and that, of course, is going to be difficult for Sabalenka to deal with. However, she did announce she was going to play in Miami. I'm not sure how mentally, but either way, the point is she's going to play. She said she's not going to do actual media afterwards, but Sabalenka will be in the event, which I thought was kind of surprising, and hopefully she has a nice performance. Besides that, Raducanu ended up pulling out of Miami due to injury, so she's not playing, and Halep ended up returning to action as she ended up losing in the first round in Miami. First match in a while, lost to Badoza, who's had her own mess of a 2024 campaign. But the point is, Halep came back and ended up winning the first set, actually, before losing the next two. So definitely, I'd say, an interesting feeling of emotions with Halep returning to action after her doping suspension. But mostly wanted to mention the news pretty much regarding the actual WTA event. Nothing really else to add. I know that Sinner was thinking about not potentially participating in Miami because of the injury that he suffered against Alcaraz in Indian Wells. He decided that he was fine, so he was going to end up trying to play in this event, but keep an eye out for it moving forward. But mostly the news updates involve injuries and, say, very, very unfortunate circumstances for several WTA players. Anyway, time to get into the actual preview of the event. So we're going to start off with the recent winners in Miami. So we're going to be looking at the recent winners, and Medvedev did win last year as he beat Sinner. You might remember Medvedev ended up basically taking advantage of Sinner, who was exhausted following his marathon match against Alcaraz, and then Medvedev eventually got the job done in the final. Now you ended up seeing Alcaraz beat Ruud in the year prior. So Alcaraz was going for consecutive Miami championships, did not work out, and he'll look for another title after winning Indian Wells last week. You saw Hurkacz beat Sinner, and then you ended up having COVID take the year off, but you had Federer beating Isner in the year prior to COVID. Now, the important, I'd say, trend to note for this event is that nobody has won back-to-back Miami Opens since Djokovic back in 2015, 2016. So usually you get a unique winner, and because of that, I have to bring up Medvedev once again, because Medvedev has won a bunch of ATP titles, and the trend is still alive. He has never defended a single ATP title. Never has. If he won a title one year and he showed up the next year to defend it, he lost every time. That's the story of Medvedev's career right now with the dubious piece of history. But the point is, with that history and with the lack of a repeat champion for multiple years, I'm not going to pick Medvedev to win. Just full disclosure. I think he might make a deep run, but I'm going to back those trends. Medvedev will not make it into my outright picks for the actual tournament. Now, I do have quarter odds, so we're going to go through the quarters right now before we get into the actual outrights. Starting off with the first quarter, I'm going to read off the odds first and give out my picks. Alcaraz is minus 200. You see Shelton as the second favorite at 7-1. Hurkacz is 7-1. Dimitrov is 8-1. Monfils is 16-1 after a decent showing in Indian Wells. Zafulin's 18-1. Court is 18-1. To be honest, I'm not going to really spend much more time mentioning guys because I'm picking Alcaraz and I'm not really picking anybody else. Shelton, I don't think is good enough to beat Alcaraz, and I find it kind of interesting that has the second lowest odds compared to Hurkacz, and they're both at plus 700. I get it. Hurkacz has had a pretty bad 2024, but we know he's the better player, so I do find those odds pretty interesting. Dimitrov is maybe tempting at 8-1 because he's had a good year, but I don't see him beating Alcaraz, so I'm not going to pick him. Same with Monfils, who's had a decent year so far, but I'm not going to pick him to beat Alcaraz. Simply put, Alcaraz in great form. I kept mentioning how I was waiting for him to win a title after Wimbledon, and he finally did so. Took a long time, but Ferrero's back in his corner. He's in America, and he's been looking very sharp so far in the Masters 1000 season on hard court. Give me Alcaraz to win the quarter at minus 200 with nobody else. Moving on to the second quarter, this one I did have a couple of options. The favorite in this quarter is Zverev at plus 250. De Minaur's at 3-1. Rune's at 350. Khachanov is 650. Leheshka is 12-1. Felix is 12-1. You're looking at Cerundolo at 25-1 and a bunch of other long shots who have no chance. So I am not going to pick Zverev in this quarter because he's also had a pretty bad 2024. So I think Zverev can get it done, but I really don't see much value. I get it's at plus 250, but the point is I really have not been impressed by his overall form recently, and you're looking at his overall path. It's not bad, but I do think that if I was looking at a Zverev and Khachanov matchup potentially, I'm not sure Zverev would win. The point is I think that Zverev's had a pretty lackluster start to the campaign, and I'd rather take two guys that have already won ATP titles this season. So I am going to go De Minaur at plus 300. I just think he's in great form. I do think that his game can give Zverev problems. We saw them have a marathon match a couple weeks ago in which Zverev did win in 3 sets, but still. The point is I do think De Minaur has the game and the overall form to get the job done and to potentially make a deep run here. So I don't mind plus 300 on De Minaur. My second pick will be Khachanov at plus 650. Once again, I like the form he's been in. We saw him win a title in Doha this year. He's been good, and we do know that the forehand can play well on the fast courts in Miami. His draw is pretty favorable. You have Khachanov taking on De Gea most likely after the bye. Then either Cerundolo, Offner, or shout out to Nishikori, who got a wild card and will be in the event. I'm not picking him to do anything in the event, but it's nice to see Nishikori back in action. Hopefully he looks sharp. But the point is Khachanov got a pretty good section there, and I do think that based on the overall path, I don't think it's that bad for Khachanov, and I do like the odds here at plus 650. Those will be my two long shots, so my two picks for the second quarter. It's pretty open. Once again, Alcaraz is minus 200 to win his quarter. Zverev is plus 250 as the favorite to win the second quarter. So the point is it's up for grabs. And I'm not going to go with Zverev. Give me two guys that have looked pretty sharp in 2024. Give me De Minaur at 3-1 and give me Khachanov at 650. Now we're going to move on to the third quarter in a second. But before we get into any of that, do want to take a quick word from our sponsor. We're brought to you by Merch Madness. 15% off everything in the merch store, promo code Madness. So if you are looking for some tennis gambling podcast and merch, we have shirts available on the actual merch store, and you can definitely get a couple of them with a nice discount because you get 15% off everything in the merch store once again with the promo code Madness. We're also brought to you by the SGPN subscriber-only March Madness contest. This contest is free to enter, and it only open to subscribers of SGPN shows. For every SGPN show you're subscribed to, you'll get bonus credits to use in the contest. It's a bankroll-style contest and a winner-take-all actual prize format for a $1,000 prize or $2,000 if you're subscribed to the Sports Gam Podcast Patreon. Go to sportsgampodcast.com/madness, sportsgampodcast.com/madness. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Peer-to-peer social betting is a new and better way to bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with verifiable outcomes, plus a ton of social features that give it the feel of a betting social network. Cut offers lower vig and fully customizable odds so you can create your own bets. Cut handles the payment side of things, so you never have to worry about chasing down your money. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and more. And they also have great rewards. Get cash back every single time you bet against your friends or other users. So download Cut today in the App Store or over at cut.com. That's KUTT, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the place to play fantasy sports because it is the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. They have great pick'em games. For example, you can pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in their upcoming games. You can win up to 100 times your money in a single night. Pick between 2 and 5 players to build a pick'em entry, and you can also make rivals picks, which pits 2 players against each other, so you can pick which player you think might have more points, for example, in an NBA game. But a reminder that you should also join Underdog Fantasy because they have a lot of very fun markets for tennis. They have, for example, breaks of serve, they have aces, they have a lot of fun tennis options to make matches more interesting, and I recommend you joining the platform in order to take advantage of those opportunities. So sign up today with promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them on the App Store, and don't forget to register with the promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Must be 18 plus and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. We were in the middle of breaking down the actual quarters, did go through the first quarter and the second quarter. Now it is time to get into the third quarter. So looking at the actual odds for the third quarter in this one, you have Medvedev as the favorite at about plus 130. Looking at the second favorite, you have Fritz at 4-1. You have Ruud at 550. Humbert at 7-1. You have Norrie at 13-1. Draper at 14-1. Hopefully he's healthy again. You have Fokina 22-1, Jarry 25-1, and I'm not going to mention the other guys. So Medvedev is the defending winner, which means I'm not picking him to win because he has not defended a title in his entire career on the ATP Tour. So I think he can make a deep run, but I'm not picking him to win. Having said that, I think deep run does include making a semifinal or maybe even a final. So give me Medvedev at plus 130. It's a great price. I think it's a relatively weak quarter in general. You're looking at Fritz, who we know can be very inconsistent. Ruud can be very inconsistent. Humbert, who's had a very good start to the year, but I think that Medvedev's a better player than he is, even though Humbert has given Medvedev problems over the course of their careers. So maybe Humbert can get him on a good day, but I think Medvedev's more reliable, so I am going to go with him there as the favorite. But I'm not going to pick Norrie at 13-1. I'm not going to take Draper because I don't trust him physically in the hot weather of Miami. So I think that Draper overall long-term might, I'd say, struggle physically as the rounds progress. But the point is Medvedev, I think, is a good price at plus 130. We did take him in Indian Wells in that quarter at plus money as well, and he got there, I don't want to say easily, but he ended up getting there. The point is I think Medvedev at plus 130 is a pretty disrespectful price. I think it should be closer to minus 110, minus 120, but there's no way Alcaraz should be minus 200 and Medvedev should be plus 130. I think Medvedev here is definitely worthy of being a minus favorite, but that's the bookmaker's problem, not ours. Thank you for the extra value. Give Medvedev at plus 130. However, I'm not only going to take Medvedev here. I am going to take a spin with Ruud at plus 550. I mentioned before that Medvedev cannot really defend titles, so if he does go down early in a somewhat of a surprising upset, Ruud did make a final here 2 years ago as he ended up losing to Alcaraz. So I do know that Ruud has the game that translates pretty well to Miami. Ruud has had a pretty interesting start to 2024 where he's not really won any titles, but he has made some deep runs. He lost a couple of finals, for example. But the point is, Ruud, I do think, has the game to make a somewhat deep run in this event. Am I picking him to win? No. But I do think he can maybe make a semi, and that's all we need to cash this. But plus 550 for a guy that's been in kind of underrated form this season. I'm not really in the biggest, I'd say, mood to take Fritz at plus 400. I get it. Fritz has been an ATP title winner this season, as he won in Delray. Recently, though, he's kind of reverted back to losing to some top-tier talent, as he lost that tough match to Rune, for example. But still, I do think that Ruud was the 1-0 lifetime record against Fritz on a hard court. I think he has the game to potentially make a deep run. And if Fritz is plus 400 and Ruud is plus 550, and Ruud did beat Fritz in the only head-to-head meeting on hard court, the odds feel off to me. So give me a bit of value with Ruud at plus 550. Moving on to the fourth quarter, we're gonna look at the favorite here. And we're not going to pick the favorite. The favorite here is Sinner at minus 190. Tsitsipas is 7-1. Rublev is 7-1. Tommy Paul 750. I'm assuming the ankle's okay, but still, he's plus 750. Tiafoe's 16-1. Bublik's 25-1. Shapo's 28-1. Fees is 28-1. Berrettini's back after making a deep run in Phoenix in the Challenger Circuit before losing to, I believe it was Borges in the final. But either way, point is he's back on the ATP level. Hopefully Berrettini looks sharp. I believe he plays Andy Murray in the first round, so that should be a lot of fun. But either way, point is that's kind of a first-round match to look forward to. The point is, though, it might shock some people. I am not going to take Sinner at minus 190. Now, Sinner is a guy who I love. I think that he is a phenomenal player. I think even though Alcaraz did beat him in Indian Wells, I do think Sinner right now is still the number one player in the world right now. Having said that, I alluded to it before. Sinner did seem to be a little bit injured in that Alcaraz match, either from the ankle he was shaking out or from the elbow injury, which he suffered when he dove on that crazy point and he kind of messed up his wrist or his elbow. The point is, Sinner did say that he was not feeling 100%, and it seemed like he was kind of on the fence if he was even going to participate in this event. He decided to do so. He's had a couple of practice sessions afterwards, but the point is, if Sinner's not going to be 100%, and there's maybe a slim chance that Sinner is injured, he's trying to play through it, and maybe he decides midway through an event he is not fit to play, and it's better off to save his energy and health for future endeavors. The point is, I'm not going to lay 190. If Sinner was like plus 130, I'd consider it. But minus 190 for an injured player, I don't know how seriously injured, but the point is, a guy below 100% health at minus 190, that sounds like bad business to me, and for that reason, I'm not going to take it. Now, I'm obviously not going to take Tsitsipas, who's been a disaster so far in 2024, and the main issue is the return game. He can't return to save his life. It's kind of just an overall story with either the forehand or the backhand. You can dive into some graphs, some metrics. I've done the dive before. It's ugly for Tsitsipas return-wise, so I'm not going to pick Tsitsipas to make any run at all until he shows any ability to break serve on a regular basis. Rublev at 7-1, though, I am going to take. Rublev, we know, has kind of gone off the grid after that fiasco that we ended up having in that match against Bublik, where he got defaulted, he lost his points, he lost his prize money, but then he ended up appealing, and he won the appeal. But the point is, he had a pretty interesting event there in Dubai, where he was about to head to basically a tiebreak in the final set of the semifinal. Then he got ejected from the tournament, and we haven't really seen him since. So Rublev, I do think for his game, maybe the time off can help. Maybe the extra time can allow him to reflect, and maybe he'll look sharper. But the point is, he did not really do much since that issue in Dubai. So he should be well rested. We know he's a very good hardcourt player. He's kind of had an up and down 2024 as well, as he won a title early, very, very early this year, and has really not done anything since. But the point is, he has not played since Dubai. I take it back. He ended up beating Murray in Indian Wells, then he lost to Leheshka. I completely forgot about that Leheshka match. The point is, though, he has not played in about 12 days, should be rested, or at least I should say in between matches. He has not played as of right now in 10 days. By the time the match takes place in the first round, it will be 12 days. So he should be rested. He lost relatively early in Indian Wells, but I do think 7-1 is a pretty good price, assuming Sinner has a slight chance of dropping. Tsitsipas is an absolute no-bet territory, and Tommy Paul's been very good, but I have to wonder about the ankle, because that sprain did not look great when he rolled it, and he ended up playing the match anyway. Didn't look great afterwards against Medvedev, but the point is, do I trust Tommy Paul to go on a massive Masters 1000 run after a deep run in Indian Wells with a potentially injured ankle? I'm not going to do it. So with two players who might be injured in the top four based on odds here, and with Tsitsipas being a disaster, I think Rublev has value at 7-1. Is he going to get there? Maybe not. But 7-1 for a player of Rublev's caliber is a very solid price. I think it's a good buy low spot. And if Sinner does end up dropping, these odds are going to plummet. So I'm going to gamble on it. Give me Rublev at plus 700 as my pick to win the fourth quarter. So once again, my picks for the quarters. The first quarter is going to be simple. Give me the favorite. Give me Alcaraz at minus 200. My second quarter picks are going to be on de Minaur plus 300 and Khachanov at plus 650. I am going to skip Zverev as the favorite at plus 250 based on me not being a big fan of his current form. Third quarter, I am going to go with Medvedev as the favorite at plus 130, and I'm going to go with a sprinkle on Ruud as a bit of a longer shot at plus 550. And my picks for the fourth quarter, I am going to go with Rublev as my only selection at plus 700 in a bit of a buy low spot in a relatively injury-filled quarter. That's going to do it for the actual quarters. Now it's time for the outright picks. Going through the actual odds for the event, Alcaraz is favored over Sinner in this event, as Alcaraz is plus 210. You have Sinner at plus 250. Medvedev is 650. Norrie is about 9-1. But as I was talking, Norrie's odds, I think, just got pulled. So I don't know if he just opted out, but the point is the odds have shifted to some degree. I don't see Norrie here anymore, so maybe we had some breaking news here at like 2:20 in the morning. I don't know. I'm just going by the odds in front of me. But the point is Medvedev is 650, Zverev is 16-1, de Minaur is 20-1, Fritz is 22-1, Rune is 28-1, Ruud is 30-1, Shelton is 30-1, Rublev is 30-1, Hurkacz is 40-1, Dimitrov is 40-1, Paul's 40-1, Tsitsipas is 40-1, Khachanov is 50-1, Humbert is 50-1, and after that it's 80-1 or higher. So I'm going to start off with my favorite pick. I only have two for the outrights in this tournament. I am going to go with Alcaraz at plus 210. Simply put, he's in great form. Yes, I do know that he played in Indian Wells, so maybe fatigue will be an issue. I don't think it's going to be because he kind of coasted for most of the event with the exception of the first set loss to Sinner, but he did not drop a set besides that after the first set against Arnaldi. So he's been in good form. He's had some time off after winning Indian Wells because he has a bye, obviously, in the first round. And he's minus 200 to win the quarter. So he's basically a shoo-in based on the odds to make the semis. That's good enough for me. Give me Alcaraz at plus 210. Now, I thought about de Minaur as a bit of a longer shot here. The problem is his quarter is still difficult. I am picking de Minaur to win the quarter at 3-1, but Zverev is still in there. Khachanov is still in there. There's some talent there in the second quarter, where you're looking at Rune, for example. Leheshka's been good. He had a good run there in Indian Wells. The point is, I think based on how difficult the actual quarter is for de Minaur, and the fact that he would have to face off against Alcaraz in the semifinals, makes me want to skip him. So even though I'm picking him to win the quarter, I'm not going to pick him to win the event at 20-1, especially since he's on the same half of the bracket as Alcaraz. Instead, I am going to try to avoid Alcaraz as long as possible. I am going to go with the buy low candidate here. I am going to go with Rublev at 30-1. Simply put, I do think looking at his actual quarter, yes, it's 7-1 for him to win the quarter, but I mentioned before that Sinner's battling some injuries. Tommy Paul's battling an ankle injury. Tsitsipas has been a disaster this year. It does feel like a very good spot to get great odds on Rublev, who's still a top 10 player. Could it blow up in my face? Of course it can. Rublev's been kind of up and down, Jekyll and Hyde this season. But 30-1 on Rublev are odds you're not going to get that often, especially in what could be a very, very fragile quarter. So because of that, I'm going to capitalize on his overall quarter in my eyes, and I am going to go with the guy that would have to wait until the final to face off against Alcaraz. Can I see him beating Medvedev? Sure. I think Medvedev would probably beat Rublev based on the head-to-head dominance, but 30-1, I think, is a very good price, and Medvedev, once again, has never defended a title in his ATP career, so I'm not going to pick him to win an outright. So give me Rublev at 30-1. So once again, my two outright picks are Alcaraz at plus 210 and Rublev at 30-1. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the outrights, and now it's time for the lock and dog picks for the first round matches of Miami. Before we get into any of that, though, do you want to take a quick word from our sponsor? We're brought to you by Game Time. I don't know about all of you, but I personally love attending sport events in person. It used to be very annoying to actually find a ticketing platform that I could trust, but that changed once I found Game Time, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have great last-minute deals on tickets, and their best price guarantee means you can stop stressing over the tickets, and you can start getting hyped over the fun that you're going to have. My favorite feature is going to definitely be the images of seat views, which is very, very useful for me, because maybe you've had an experience like this where you have bought a ticket to a sporting event, and you ended up finding your seats, and you realize that there's a pole or an obstruction in your line of view, so you paid a lot of your hard-earned money, and you're not able to see anything that you actually paid to see. So that's not going to happen with Game Time, because they will show you the image of the view you're going to get before you actually spend money, so you'll always get a good view of the action. Plus, Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget plenty of months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So sign up tickets without the stress. With Game Time, download the app and create an account and use the code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Champs. Champs is hosting a free March Madness bracket contest for a chance to win $1,000. Plus, if you host your own March Madness pool on Champs, you'll get an extra free entry into the bracket contest. Tiebreakers are determined by whoever enters first, so make sure you register now so you don't miss out. Head to sportsgamepodcast.com/champs, sportsgamepodcast.com/champs. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger betting smarter this NBA season with Hall of Fame Bets. Sports Analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NBA and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets' revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the app at HOPEBets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the upcoming Miami tournament, and we went through the actual quarter odds and outright odds. Now it is time for the actual lock and dog picks for the first round matches in Miami. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go to a matchup between Draper and Daniel. I did mention in passing that I was concerned about Draper's stamina and durability over the course of the entire event. However, the perks of the lock is that we're only going to be talking about the first round. Give me Draper to win in straight sets at -142. Looking at the main reasons why I'm going to take this against Taro Daniel. First reason, Draper is a -500 favorite, even -550 in some spots. So I do think that Draper is a very good candidate to potentially find a way to reduce the juice with based on Daniel's recent form. And because of that, I do think that Draper is, I don't want to say a shoo-in to win the match, but the point is he should be able to take advantage of a weaker opponent in the first round. I think that getting a -500 favorite at -142 is very appealing. That's the first reason why I am going to take it. Second reason, Draper was in very good form, but unfortunately struggled with his fitness, and he has not played since March 6th, lost in the first round to O'Connell in Indian Wells. So we know that he got injured in Acapulco against de Minaur, who ended up winning the event. So the fact is, he was playing good tennis, and then he got injured again, which is the story of Draper's career. Then he kind of rushed himself back after that injury and lost immediately to O'Connell. I'm not going to overreact to that because I wonder what his actual health was for that match. The point is, he has not played since the 6th, He's had 2 weeks off. I think he should be healthy. And we know Draper, when he's healthy, is much better than Taro Daniel. He's a very good hardcourt player. And I do think that Daniel's going to struggle again because Daniel has been really bad ever since making the final in Auckland. He has lost 7 of his last 9 matches against some, I'd say it's a balance between good and bad competition. But the point is, with Daniel being in bad form and with Draper being healthy, at least he should be, with the 2 weeks off after losing to Indian Wells, I do think that Draper is in a good spot to win this match against a weak opponent who's in bad form. Give me Draper to win in straight sets at minus 142 as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go to a matchup between Arnaldi and Fees, which will be taking place, I believe, on Wednesday afternoon. That's one of the later matches. The Draper match is taking place at 12:15, so that's going to be one of the earlier matches on the card, so keep an eye out for that. But as for the Arnaldi match, the projected time for that match should be around 4:05, so it's going to be probably later than that because they're going to have to wait for a couple matches to finish first on their court. But the point is, it's going to be one of the later matches in the day. For the dog, though, I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets at plus 125. I mentioned this on multiple shows for multiple months. Arnaldi is a 3-set or a deciding set machine, and that is carried over into 2024 because Arnaldi has gone to a deciding set in 6 of the last 7 matches. The only exception was against Van Asche, who he ended up beating 7-6, 7-6. I believe he trailed by a break in each of those 2 sets before coming back to win it. So the point is, the one exception was a marathon and a marathon straight set win 7-6, 7-6 in a match that he was favored in by a decent amount. Arnaldi seems to always have, I'd say, good moments and bad moments in sets, in matches, and because of that, I am going to back the trend, which is Arnaldi being a marathon man. Give me the over with the 2.5 sets because of it. Plus, they have faced off a couple times in their careers. Both meetings were last year. Faced off one on clay and one in the U.S. Open last year. That did go 5 sets, and they ended up splitting the first 2 sets. So the point is, you ended up seeing what would have been a 3-set match if it was 2 out of 3. But the point is, each of the 2 head-to-head meetings last year and in their careers ended up going to a deciding set. So we have seen this matchup before. It's competitive. It's close. We've seen it on hard court, seen it on clay. These 2 players are pretty close to each other in terms of skill, and it seems like when they face off against each other, it's pretty difficult to actually determine I'd say, a better player between the 2 of them. So give me a competitive and a very evenly fought matchup that should go the distance, and as a result, give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 125. So once again, my picks for the matches here in the first round of Miami, the lock's going to be on Draper to win in straight sets at minus 142, and my dog will be on Arnaldi and Fees over 2.5 sets at plus 125. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Tennis Gambling Podcast. A reminder, we'll be back once again for the second round of Miami and onward. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show. A reminder, MLB is actually starting in about 3.5 hours or 4 hours as they have the series between the Dodgers and the Padres in South Korea. So keep an eye out for that. Baseball MLB season is officially upon us, and the MLB Gambling Podcast did a show breaking down the matchup taking place in about 4 hours. Besides that, though, you know where to find me. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.